Twitter account, which is at Michael_Dolce, D-O-L-C-E. That is me, your host. And I wrote a blog because I've actually kind of talked about this with my comic book retailers. We were going to have Larry Doherty from Larry's Wonderful World of Comics on the air today, but unfortunately he had to postpone, so we're going to hopefully have him on next week because I'd love to hear his perspective. He's always got a great opinion on things, and he's right in the trenches. He owns one of the best comic book stores I've ever been in. It's one of the best meeting places and gathering places in Lowell, Massachusetts. It's a fun place to go, and especially if you're into this stuff, it's a great experience in general. So we were going to have him on the air. Unfortunately, like I said, he couldn't make it, so it is what it is. But one of the topics that we wanted to talk about, though, was does this equal more butts in seats when it comes to comic books and comic book readers? And I think the answer is a flat-out no. And for the most part, that's the reaction I got. So Mark Brooks is one of the most talented Marvel artists out there right now. He's drawn X-Men, he's drawn the Ultimate Universe, he's been on Spider-Man. I mean, he's done every single Marvel book out there. And he answered the question very, very upfront. He says it does help, but in a very minor way. Oddly enough, the jump tends to come before the movie comes out and drops off since it hits theaters. A comic can ride a hype wave. Once it's gone, the wave goes with it, and the book settles back to its earliest regular readers. It's increasing, but it's incremental and very small. So he actually thinks there's an increase in the amount of readers, and I think there is too. I asked my local comic book store, Comic Book Warehouse. They're in Pearl River, New York. So if you're ever in Pearl River, New York, go check them out. And I said, do these things make any kind of impact on sales for you? And he says, he used Guardians of the Galaxy as an example. A couple people come in. They walk in, they ask, do you have anything Guardians of the Galaxy? Yes, we do. We give them a trade because it's the easiest thing to kind of get people going. They buy it, they go, great, and they never come back. And I think this is the kind of recurring trend. I think it's more so reflected in the comic book conventions as well, too. Tony Dunley, a good friend of mine, an artist on Albert Einstein Time Mason, terrific book. If you haven't checked it out, go on the Kickstarter page. It's really, really awesome. It's what if Albert Einstein was played by Tom Selleck and was a time-traveling Nazi hunter. It's amazing. Amazing book. So he says, not that I run into a lot more people that tell me they love comic books. And when you ask them what books they buy, they say, oh, I love the movies. And that's just basically what's going on. I sell many more prints than I do books. I sell many more sketches when I do sketches at shows than I do books these days. I mean, if you go back to 10 years ago when I first released The Sire, I would bring boxes of books and sell through boxes of books because the people at these comic book conventions were comic book readers that wanted to meet their fan favorite artists. It used to really, really mean something. And I think there was more media around it, though. I think there was when Wizard Magazine was there and when Comic Book Buyer's Guide was those two were like the big, comic book magazines when print was still, a vital way to kind of get information across and news across. Those were, it was an event to go to comic book conventions because you'd meet Jim Lee. It was an event to go to comic book conventions because you meet J. Scott Campbell or Michael Turner. Rest in peace. Michael Turner was an amazing artist. But, all these guys that you could sell a comic book convention based on Garth Ennis and John Cassidy and Mark Millar and Chris Claremont. And you could sell an entire comic book convention based on that, and you'd have one or two movie guests. I remember back in 2005, we actually had Christopher Nolan. I don't know if Christian Bale was there. I can't remember if he was. But I know Christopher Nolan was there answering questions about Batman Begins. And he was like the highlight of Wizard World Chicago in 2005. There's no question. They obviously build the whole show around that. But the majority of people that were coming to those comic book conventions, remember 2005, comic book movies, you had your Spider-Man movies, you had the X-Men movies. That's pretty much all you had. You had Blade, you had some other things. That kind of thing. But you don't necessarily have that today. Now you have, Wizard World as an organization has built their entire conventions around come see the X-Files stars, come see the stars from Arrow, come see the stars from Flash. There's no more come see Jim Lee. He's kind of there. He could be at one of those shows. Come see the cast from Avengers. Stan Lee is still, he's an icon. So he kind of falls into that category. He's also on his last run But we say that every year, and he's still going, and I actually applaud him for 92 years old, and he's still, like, kind of making his rounds around. Awesome. Like, just in general, that's just an awesome thing. We're broadcasting live on TalkingAlternative.com every Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern. It goes to podcast every Monday on iTunes. You can just search Secrets of the Sire, S-I-R-E. Getting back to it, though. I don't think it equals success. Like, I just don't think it equals comic book success. When all is said and done. Had some great tweets. The illustrious Q on Twitter. You know, he actually agreed, but he wanted to point out that two problems are not mutually exclusive. First, films create expectations in the minds of the movie audience for the comics. Comics don't match the experience. Thus, it could be argued that the books are garbage, regardless of how good they are for the movie audience. It's true. That is a great point. So we thank you for chiming in on the Twitter page at Michael_Dolce. That's one of the things, too. We're living in a media right now. I'm being live streamed on 3 separate websites as we speak right now. I'm being broadcast on internet radio. I'm going to have this all on my YouTube page. I have the Facebook page. I have the Twitter page. I mean, whatever page. I'm going to have to get on Snapchat soon. I'm going to have to do Facebook. I mean, whatever the case is. But the reason I bring this up is that we have so much media. We have so much virtual media. We have so much interactive media. This is why print is dead. I mean, I'm not saying anything groundbreaking here. Print is dying. We know this. But the comic book experience, I was trying to put myself in my shoes when I was 12 years old. When I was 12 years old, the highlight of my week every Wednesday would be my dad would drive me to the comic book store. Dad, can we go to the comic book store? Because you would have this experience of reading these books. And, I mean, I remember waiting for X-Force number 7 to come out. Just waiting. And when Cannonball got stabbed through the heart by Sauron, like, what? You killed Cannonball? That's crazy. I have to wait 30 days. First of all, you have to wait 30 days. You can't read about it on 18 different websites. You can't tune into a radio show to see people debating, is he dead or is he not dead? I mean, you basically are just on pins and needles waiting for this experience. The artwork is so bright and colorful. I mean, you're talking about using like PCs and Macs back in 94. I mean, this you just don't have this visceral media. Print is everything. Comic books are like, I think, the pinnacle of print media back then in terms of related to what we kind of are used to today. So yeah, absolutely, I don't think the experience is the same anymore. Because even me, when I go to my comic book store, I mean, I used to buy 20, 25 comics and used to read through them a day, 2 days. I mean, it wouldn't take me long. I mean, I was 12 years old, it was great, or 14 years old, whatever the case was. Periscope Peep just asked an awesome question, but I can't answer because we did a spoiler-free review. So in a couple weeks, I'll let you know. Okay, the answer is no to the Periscope Peep, but we'll talk about that question in a few weeks. No, when you're 12 years old, I mean, this is all you have. This is great. So to the comic book movie goer, I guess for lack of a better term, to go into a comic book store and then get the same experience, there's no way you can get the same experience. We talked in the first segment about how amazing the visual experience of this Batman versus Superman movie was. The visual experience. I mean, it is unreal. This is your favorite heroes, not looking cheesy. That Batman suit is awesome. Like, awesome. I mean, it was the most amazing thing. My cousin was sitting next to me, and he just blurts out, "That is a badass suit." And I'm like thinking to myself, that's exactly what I mean. I was simultaneously thinking the exact same thing at the exact same time. And I'm floored by that. I mean, everyone looks amazing. Superman looks amazing. Every time he flies, the tagline from the 1978 movie, "You will believe a man can fly." No, you don't have to believe anything. He flies. That's it. You just think he flies. I mean, this is like as realistic as you're ever going to get. Well, maybe more so when we do virtual reality and 3D and all that other stuff. But, I mean, it's amazing. It's absolutely incredible. So, no, I don't think the comic book experience for some of these movie fans is going to match. And it's true. They might go and they might read and then they might walk out. For me, the comic book experience was always different. It was about the art, the line work, the storytelling, the characters, the cliffhanger after every issue to make me want to come back more, the deep, mythology and history, referencing earlier things. But this is, that in and of itself is kind of a dying experience because, back before you had internet and social media and all this other stuff, you had a lot more time to think. You had a lot more time to ponder. You also knew you weren't going to ever see Batman versus Superman, and if you did, it was an amazing event. Now you have fan videos that are being shot that have Batman versus Superman, Batman versus Spider-Man, Punisher versus Spider-Man, Punisher versus Superman. I mean, you can go on. There's just too many options out there to kind of satiate it. So I think that's a big problem as well too. We also had Joel Elad, who just took over a position at IDW. We've had how many Spider-Man movies since the early 2000s? What's the monthly sales on a regular Spider-Man book when Spidey came out versus today? That's your answer to, do the movies bring in comic book fans? The best time I saw a movie bring in crowds on a noticeable move-the-needle effort was the 1989 Batman. Those movies are exploring the life of the characters, not necessarily monthly floppy print comic books. Like Mark Brooks said, there are small jumps, but it stabilizes back. Great point in the 1989, and welcome to all the Periscope peeps. We are live on Talkative.com, talking Batman versus Superman and the effect that it has on the comic book industry. Joel's point, though, was spot on in that 1989 movie, yes, the 1989 movie would give a jump and a bump to the comic book sales. Why? Because exactly what we just talked about. There's just less media. There's just less movies out there. It was a first of its kind. Maybe not the first of its kind. You had Superman in 78 and 82, but that franchise, slowly, bit the dust by 1987 and the god-awful Superman 4. So there's no question about it. By 1989, you have Tim Burton's Batman. He's bringing another character you've never seen before on the screen, aside from Adam West's cheesy, campy version in the 60s. Of course, it's going to inspire people to want to go to comic book stores because that's the only way they're going to get their fix after that movie's over. Now, I see Batman versus Superman versus Wonder Woman versus unnamed villain that was seen in the movie trailer. I just don't want to give anything away for people that blacked out the movie trailer. This moratorium is going to be lifted next week, though. Sam's my barometer, my engineer. The day he sees the Batman Superman movie, he hasn't seen it yet. The day he sees it, I will lift the spoiler-free, mantra from this. So we're trying to see this, but now Omar Morales actually gave an interesting point of view as well, too, that he says they're trying. For example, I got a free digital download of a Bats Soups book from DC with the purchase of my IMAX ticket. And that's awesome. See, digital comics, and that's why we're almost kind of tabling that part of the discussion, because I'd like to see Larry Doherty from Larry's World of Comics, kind of talk about the digital experience versus the print experience, because it's a real issue that could threaten, his very livelihood and threaten the comic book stores in general. All right, when we return, we're going to shift gears just slightly. We're going to break down our March Madness Final Four. We had our last movie franchise, the X-Men franchises. We reveal the winner of that franchise, and then I'm going to debate between the winners as to what was the best franchise film.
You're listening to the Talking Alternative Network.